Welcome, everybody, to Operator Series Season 2. I always mess up which episode it is, but Gina prepped me, so it's Episode 7. Very excited with the guests that we have today. Before we jumped on, we were just nerding out about traveling, so maybe we'll throw out some traveling fun facts throughout this as well. But I've got my notes up here. We've got Christopher Lander, who's the founder of Basis, which is a brand incubator based down in San Diego. And they also incubated Autobrush, which is the unique electric brush of the 21st century. They have been blowing up lately. We've been fortunate to work with them for a bit over here at ShipBob as he looks to scale his business while not having to handle all of the fulfillment side of the world. And so, again, we're excited with that. And then we have Aoife, who is over in Dublin, or not in Dublin, outside of Dublin, and over in Ireland. And she's with Octane AI, who's been a longtime partner of ours. I think one of the first events that I got to speak at was in Toronto at the Shopify HQ over there, along with Ben Parr, who is one of the co-founders of Octane. And really owns the e-commerce circuit. So as we always start this, everybody please drop in where you're calling in from. And while you do that, here we'll start off with some fun stuff. We've got people here. I don't think we'll be wasting their time. Well, Chris and Aoife, what is your favorite place you've traveled to? So Chris, we'll start with you.
Japan, easy, hands down. Best type of culture. I like that type of weather too. It's not always too hot. It's not too cold, and the food is just unmatched.
There we go. And then I spilled it earlier, but you are in San Diego, originally from Connecticut.
Yes, sir.
There we go. And Aoife, what about you?
Cape Town, South Africa. Absolutely amazing. Great food, great weather, beach, mountains, everything you want. I loved it.
Awesome. I have not been anywhere in Africa yet. And you mentioned you did a remote year, which sounds really exciting. And then now seemingly forever ago, I actually quit my job and traveled for about 15 months, lived out of a backpack, got to do that whole life as well. I'd say one of my favorite places was Nepal. It was just such a beautiful country, and I think no matter where you travel, it's the people that make it. And the people were just so nice and welcoming, and just got to see so much cool stuff with like the Himalayas, and then Chitwan National Park, where it's just you and like another dude, and all of a sudden like a rhinoceros walks by and you feel like you're in Jurassic Park or something. It was mind blowing. So anyways, maybe we'll go back to talking about traveling a little bit. But Chris, I want to start with you. So tell us about what was the origin story of Basis, and like why you to create that, and then Autobrush, how'd that come to fruition?
Sure. I'll try to make it quick and dirty here. So Basis was primarily an affiliate marketing company in the early stages. We were based out of Norwalk, Connecticut. We got really good at selling products for other people. Realized that once the marketing stops, the business stops, and when we had got to a certain threshold, I started wondering about like what's next. And I always wanted to get into the branding side, but I didn't know a thing about branding. I didn't know where to get a product. I didn't know how to make a product. I didn't know how to do package. I knew nothing about it. But I realized that like the drop shipping stage could help you understand the ecosystem without the massive investment in inventory. So we did that. And we learned a lot of really hard lessons along the way. But that helped us also find products, communicate with China, communicate with suppliers, and see what's actually out there in the world for us to bring to mainstream. And part of that, we found a lot of great products. One product that we started was Ivy Leaf. Our background was primarily selling skincare, so we knew that we could sell skincare. It was kind of like in our wheelhouse at that time. But a few products, Untangled, that whole brand came to life because we were seeing massive success on the drop shipping side. It's like, okay, there's the obvious downsides of drop shipping. It's great for some things and it's awful for the other things. So we try to take the awful things out of it and build around it. And we did do that. We did it successfully. And then came along Autobrush, and that story is a little bit different. So we were working with the manufacturer with Untangled and Ivy Leaf, and it was in Korea, there was some in Vietnam, there was some in China, and there was some here stateside. We were understanding like to find like the real stuff that was going on, you had to go a little bit deeper with these manufacturers. Like, what are you working on that people aren't actually looking at yet, right? Like, what's outside of AliExpress and Alibaba and 1068 and all these other places. So as my relationship grew with the manufacturer, we found out that he was also producing toothbrushes. We found the first version of what Autobrush eventually came, and ordered one, and like, I get it. And it's like, why is nobody talking about this? And I quickly realized that there's some deficiencies in the first versions of the product that made it not so mainstream. And it's like, but that is where like it sparked, oh man, there's like tons of opportunity here. I don't have a dental background, but I love to scale things. I love to build things. And I felt like that was the most opportunity out of the bunch. And as of just recently, I sold Untangled and Ivy Leaf. So we've kind of migrated from a brand incubator at this point to pretty much an Autobrush company now. And
congrats on that.
It's awesome. It's been a crazy ride, honestly. But the realization from understanding like we just don't have bandwidth anymore, and we're just not as excited about those brands as we are with Autobrush. Let's get them out of our way, and that's exactly what happened. So we did that really quickly, sold them super fast, and I think I might have hit it. I hit it all right there, and now we're I have some plans to try to take over some other companies that will help us build Autobrush. So Basis is still kind of functional in the incubator capacity, but as of right now, you could essentially call us Autobrush now.
That's awesome. There's a lot there that I want to unpack, but Autobrush, I remember when I saw some colleagues of mine talking about it, I was checking it out. I'm like, oh, this is genius. Like, because I have 3 little ones myself, and getting them to brush their teeth is about as fun as putting them down for bed.
Yeah.
And then from a business model perspective for you all, they're really good at losing things or hiding things. And so I'm sure or breaking them. Yeah. And so I'm sure you get a lot of repeat orders from there as well. So that's pretty interesting. So before you got to Autobrush, I want to talk a little bit more about, you getting into the e-commerce world and some of the drop shipping. And so anything you can share there on what were, some of the first products that you guys were testing? I know you mentioned some of the companies. I'm not sure what you guys were selling exactly. And were you finding all of these suppliers on AliExpress and Alibaba?
Exactly. We were doing it traditional style, and like thinking now, God, that was like 4 years ago. It feels like yesterday, but it was probably in the infant stages of, drop shipping was still popping at that point, but it wasn't as like, you could quit your job and build a Shopify store and connect it to AliExpress and make a bunch of money on the internet. It wasn't obviously quite like that, but we were doing exactly that. And then we got really, really good at that. We were testing anywhere from 25 to 50 new products every day. So we were really just trying to churn the cycle, but our core motivation
every day. Were you guys just promoting them like on a Shopify store with Facebook just to see who you get like clicked on, or okay?
Exactly that. That was, essentially that. And we figured we wanted to find, our core motivation for rapidly testing was just to find something that we felt passionate about branding. And we figured the quickest way we figured that out was just throw a bunch of products into Facebook ads and get them set up on Shopify and see what we could build. So
would they be like on a generic URL? Would you create like a unique brand for each of them? Like what was
it was on like what you would call like a general store, but we took that general store serious like a brand. So the brand was this general store. I believe its name was Emporium Pop at the time. I don't know where the name came from. I don't remember that story, but that's what it was. And we were cranking revenue at the time, and it was working as its own business model. But in the back of my mind, we always knew it was just the bridge to get to exactly where we want to be and where we are now. But we were.
And so you were drop shipping them directly from China.
Exactly, which sucks.
Direct to consumer. You wouldn't ship in bulk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's when we started to realize all the deficiencies that we would have to really fix when we brand it, right? Like fast time to consumer, good product packaging, logistics, up until, God, we just signed with you guys a couple months ago, but I'm like, up until then, logistics was not the strongest point of our business. So we really learned all those things and just tried to make them better along the way.
How are you handling returns when you have so many different products?
We were just giving them money back. We were making significant amount on money on the front end. We were just, if somebody had an issue, we weren't good at customer experience either. We came from affiliates where you just sell things, right? You didn't worry about anything else, right? It was, I sold it for this, I got this amount of margin, and I need to scale that. So the transition to customer experience was a punch in the stomach, if you will. I think it's one of the stronger points of our business now. But at that point, is like if they didn't like the product, we just give them the money back.
And then to zoom back even further, so with your affiliate beginnings, you guys were essentially an agency helping e-commerce stores. You were doing affiliate across the board.
It was mainly affiliate across the board. We only sold products, mainly skincare, and internationally, domestically, it didn't really matter. If you had a skincare brand and you needed sales, we were probably selling your skincare at that point. We weren't loyal to a specific brand, a specific type of skincare, nothing like that. If we knew how to sell skincare, and
you weren't doing affiliate for whatever, like random payday loans or fill in the blank. Okay.
There were some smaller ones and there were some bigger ones, but we mainly stuck to kind of the bigger, more reputable ones that we understood like they actually cared about the customer. So a lot of that kind of gets lost in the fray in the affiliate world. So once we learned more about like the partners that we were working there, we kind of stuck to a certain group of partners, and then that group of partners usually had multiple skincare brands or could support multiple countries. So we would, once we kind of found our groove, we stuck to the people that we trusted.
If you remember any of it, what was like the most interesting product or surprising product that did really well?
Oh, and drop shipping, it is this crazy little this plant holder that sang.
Holder that sang?
Plant holder, yeah. So it was a plant holder, and it sang, and you could connect it to Bluetooth. It worked for a long time, and I don't even know what the specific purpose was of it. Maybe it was just to like have a speaker, connected to your Bluetooth, play your songs through your plant holder, so you don't have like more clutter. But that worked, and it worked well.
Like in big cities, because people were in their apartments, or like all over?
I don't remember the stats, honestly. We were usually not trying to get too gritty on. I mean, at the time, Facebook was easy too, right? Like it was like printing money, honestly. In some ways, like you throw some things up, if you're decent at marketing, you could probably make it work. So we were always broad, never layering audiences, kind of going like 25 plus and send it, because that audience was so large and we were pretty much scale junkies. Like that gave us the best, return if we could start to spend more and more and more on just large audiences. But even now, like the metropolitan areas for Autobrush are king. Like I think that's probably just standard amongst all, CPG brands now. But we weren't particular. We were really like 25 plus and send it.
Were you the dial turner in the Facebook ads, or were you overseeing just a bunch of people on the team, or both?
In the beginning, yes. I was also really good at it. But at that time, we had scaled up to about 7 buyers, and they were doing all of the turning, the dial turning.
All Connecticut based or all over?
Actually, yeah, 6 of them are Connecticut based, and at the time when we were all in Connecticut, and 1 was here in San Diego. So yeah, they were all in house.
We'll get into Autobrush and stuff soon too. I just find this stuff so enjoyable. With affiliate, what about outside of the US? Were there any countries that just stood out as like?
United Kingdom was like our bread and butter for a very, very long time. South Africa, we did a lot there. Australia was like so good for us. New Zealand, Canada, kind of the main core ones. Outside of that, we did really, really well in France, in French. So we had a great translator. And so everything that when we would find success with the English speaking countries, we'd always translate it to French, and it would just be, rinse and repeat. We didn't branch into all the languages, but those were kind of we made it happen in those ones.
That's awesome. And do you think that's because just like the competition was so much less and there was a ton of supply in regards to like audience, or what?
It had to be, because it was super cheap.
Okay.
There was, man, it was the days of like sub 10-cent CPCs and just take as much inventory as you possibly can type of days, right? Like budgets are not spending, that type of there was a lot of inventory, and we were trying to take it as much as we could. But it is also a little bit of effort. And like affiliates, I love affiliates and I love the affiliate industry still, but they're lazy, right? Like they're trying to find the quickest way to make money, and which is awesome, because they usually find the best and most efficient way to do that along that route. But nobody, like translating, like that's a little bit extra effort, right? Like you have to translate all of your ads, the landing pages, the offer pages, like all those things. It takes effort. So when you would put in a little bit of extra effort, it would insanely fruitful.
So taking those learnings to Autobrush, I guess first, like what's a cost per click running nowadays?
Oh my God, man, we're so like dialed in with audiences and this and that. Like some of them will be $5, but I haven't seen anything under $1 in, it feels like, years now.
Yeah. So a good
I'm
old
totally
jump.
Yeah. It's more qualified, of course, but everybody under the sun is on there now, so things are heating up. It was nice back in the day because you felt like you're sitting on a gold mine, and it's still a gold mine, but it's much different landscape.
Yeah, it's always like, because I've had different windows like that across different channels where you know it's good, but you don't know until the window's closed how
Exactly.
it was, and you're like, gosh, I should have just
Turn the dial.
or gone all in.
I think about that often. It's tough.
I bet.
You feel like the grandfather. Like back in my day, it was like this. You could just keep on going, and it's totally not the same.
So with Autobrush, again, you mentioned your success internationally. Are you focusing primarily on the U.S. consumer today? Have you started to ship and sell internationally as well? What's that look like?
We focus primarily on the United States. 85% of our customer base is in the United States. We had opened it up with our previous fulfillment situation, and we started to realize like there's some serious deficiencies there. It's like when people get the package, it takes so long, it gets lost. All of these like carriers don't translate that well. Like it starts in USPS and then gets to Australian Post or Canadian Post. I can't really recall exactly which one. Then there's like customs and border fees and all the things, like all this stuff you don't really know until you go through it. And so we dialed it all back because the experience wasn't great. And now we're re-engaging that whole scenario, but primarily because now we have a trusted partner, and we'll be able to put the products in those countries and provide the similar experience that we're providing here in the United States. So until like I would say that infrastructure is totally like solid ground, we're not really going to turn up the heat in those places. But there's still tons of people that do it.
Awesome. Well, I know right before we jumped on and we were talking about traveling, you're like, what? You guys have a location in Ireland? So we have a fulfillment center in Kilkenny, Ireland. We have a fulfillment center in Ottawa, Canada. We have one actually just outside of Heathrow. We're right by Heathrow, so in London as well. And later this month, we'll actually be launching our 4th global facility as well. So keep posted there. Then real quick with Basis, like how big is that team? And then did you move them all over to Autobrush, or some of them are still focusing on some of these like ancillary or complementary businesses that you alluded to earlier?
Everybody focuses on Autobrush. There's not a single person on the team that doesn't focus on Autobrush. And right now we are 29 people full time. Okay. And then we have a lot of partners too. We have a CRO agency, we have an SEO agency, we have a design agency, we have some consultancies, probably some other partners I might be forgetting right now, but it feels like collectively, it feels like just around 50 people that are helping us build this brand. And we weren't always on the agency route. Like at some point I was trying to do it all in house, and then I realized like I didn't really want to be in the people scaling business, and started opening up trust to agencies and partners. And honestly, it's been great. It's been great. We have worked with some amazing people, and it's nice. I think the downside was always that, like, oh, they're never going to care about it like us. They'll go home at night and they'll be thinking about some other brand. When we go home at night, or just sit next door or sit next here, we think about Autobrush. But it's actually quite different when we vetted a bunch of agencies. We feel confident that like they're connected, like we're connected, and it's crazy. It's just been incredible. So, 29 people full time on our payroll, but there's a lot more people involved.
That's awesome. I want to talk about the agencies a little bit and how you vetted them and found them, because I think that is a concern often. But I think with the competition and all the agencies, they're forced to care a lot more now, and just with the transparency and in performance and everything, it's tough to hide. But we'll get to that in a minute. Something that you talked about there is you're not in the people scaling business, and even though you do have a decent size, good size team. And I know that's where a lot of technology enablement solutions such as ShipBob and Octane and others really come in as well, because without a ShipBob, you'd probably have another 30 people picking and packing and handling all that as well. And then just on like all the stuff that where your team members can be much scaled much more efficiently by utilizing a tool like Octane. And so Octane, I feel like, rolls out new product features and MarTech stuff I had never even thought of, like, every month. So talk me through that process before we get into ShipBob and fulfillment. Like, what was the tipping point to jump over to Octane, and how do you all utilize it today?
We use the messenger side and the quiz side, but really what brought us back to the whole messenger quiz game was Octane. They've sort of ascended as the top dog of that space now, and we're really trying to hone in on lead gen to replenish our lists all the time. And our product heavily relies on education, and these quiz funnels could help us identify, like, what are these people, what do they want, and what product could best serve what they're after. So those two main aspects are just the yin and the yang. But if I had to pick one, like, the quiz funnels are certainly the most attractive thing right now, and that's where like our eyes get all glossy, because we're really about to hone in on scaling traffic to it, identifying those pain points, and then starting to use them to help us, educate people on how this product could actually help them.
Can you talk us through that funnel a little bit more? And so you're leveraging, as much as you want to share there.
Oh, no, it's all good.
You're leveraging, Facebook ads to get this to pop, and then using that, and you're like, whatever, it'll cost us X dollars per email. Like, what's the thought process there?
So we had version 1 of the quiz. It was kind of a bare bones. Would you agree? It was kind of like the let's try this out phase. And now Aofi she's building the craziest quiz I've ever seen. It's a doozy, and it's really just dialing in the personalization. But yeah, we're sending it Facebook ads for sure. It's a big top of funnel for us. And once this one is finished, we're gonna like fully invest in trying to put as many people down that funnel as possible, because at the other end, they're qualified, engaged, and they actually understand how it could change their life. And it's the biggest gap for us right now. It's like people don't really know. They're curious, but they don't really know. And a product page doesn't really do it for you. If you land there after all these steps, it's like, oh, I totally see how this thing is going to change my life, or change my kid's life, or change my mornings and my nights. And like it helps us identify all the pain points and then talk to them in a specific way. But in other ways, we use it on site in a pop-up. We use it in our app too, and there's massive engagement in that app. People will go back through it to find accessories that might complement what they've already got. But those are probably the core things right there. And if I had to narrow it down. It's just top of funnel, really big top of funnel.
And maybe from a comparison standpoint, like to get an email through other means versus using the quiz, like what's the delta, or what's it costing you guys?
So we still run traditional lead gen, like, connected to Klaviyo, and do that alongside the quiz. And I don't think we'll ever abandon one or the other, especially not until we've spent a significant amount of money kind of going through it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say we're probably on the adaption phase of this quiz, but on the first test, our leads from the quiz were $1.27. Our Klaviyo quiz, actually, we split test right now between Facebook's like lead gen and Klaviyo's lead gen connected, and those fluctuate from $4.50 to $5.27. They're massively qualified still, but like the quiz ones are way more qualified, and it's insane.
It's a third of the.
It's
25
crazy.
to a third, yeah.
They're not comparable in a lot of ways, but we're probably still kind of scale both of them for the time being. Yeah,
nice.
It's profitable on the front end. It's yeah.
Nice. Well, Aoife, you can hand this segment off to your marketing team.
Turn me into a testimonial.
And so, Aoife, I want to dive in some of that stuff with you. So, I guess you've been at Octane for a while, and you're helping Chris and his team. So, what is your role over there, and then how do you work with somebody like Autobrush?
Yeah. So I am Autobrush's account manager. So basically anything in Octane I build for them. They did build the V1 of the quiz that they have now. And then I came on board as their account manager after that. So we're kind of so the first version of the quiz, I would say, is more if someone is shopping for one person. So they'll go through, they'll answer a few questions, and then we'll give them a personalized recommendation based on their answers, but it's really only for someone shopping for one customer. But like you said, you have 3 little ones, so we did see the need for a quiz for someone who's shopping for their full family, 2 kids, 3 kids. So now we're building V2 of the quiz, which is much bigger, much more personalized, and you can shop for your whole family there. So in your recommendations, you're going to have like age 3 to 4, a line product for your first kid, and then like a family pack and that type of thing. So it's going to be way more personalized, just better recommendations as well. And then also the data that but we do have an integration with Klaviyo. So all the data that's collected in the quiz will be synced to Klaviyo if someone opts in with their email. So the quiz is really good for Autobrush to collect data and also collect email opt-ins, and then they can create really amazing follow-up flows based on the data synced to Klaviyo. So yeah, we're like at the finish point of the version 2 quiz, and then I work really closely with the Autobrush team. We have weekly meetings. We'll do a whole strategy to build out Klaviyo flows based on that quiz data. And that's really what we're working on. That's like the main thing that I'm working on at the moment. We do also do a bit of Facebook Messenger. We're kind of using it in a bit of a different way than I would use it for my other clients, where we're using it to collect leads for their next product launch, which I won't say too much about. But basically, we're trying to build a really qualified list of leads to get people on like a VIP early access list so they can get like an hour earlier access to this product launch. And we actually created a messenger style quiz for that campaign as well, where it's kind of like it's not really a product quiz, it's more of a true false quiz, where in Messenger we're asking customers like true or false, are LED lights damaging for your teeth? And then they can give their answer, and then we give them some information on LED lights and like why they're good for your teeth. And it kind of goes through like that, and then at the end they can opt in to be part of this VIP list. So we're kind of collecting leads through Facebook Messenger, trying to get this V2 quiz over the finish line, and they're really the big things that we're focusing on at the moment.
And from your involvement, are you helping think through some of the questions to pull them through the funnel based off of like your experience? Do you look to Autobrush for these? Is it a joint effort? Like, what's that look like?
It's definitely, well, Autobrush really knew what they wanted to ask. Like Ari from the Autobrush team knew exactly what she wanted to ask, knew exactly where she wanted the very personalized text sections to be. So I can give advice on like best practices, what I've seen with other quizzes. Like it's what we see is that if you kind of go over the 10 question mark, people drop off the quiz completely. If a question is too complicated, people drop off the quiz. And so I gave my advice there, but they really knew what they wanted to ask and they had it all down, like all the imagery, all the language. So it was pretty easy. It was just figuring out the results pages was the hard part, but we figured it out. So it's all good.
That's awesome. Do you guys integrate with HubSpot or Salesforce?
Not right now. It's on our roadmap, but not right now. Our integration, our big one is Klaviyo, really, for now.
Okay, great. Well, I've just got some ideas for ourselves as well, so I'm gonna be reaching out. So there you go. Awesome. And then you did mention some best practices. So like anything else there you can share, maybe even more specific other than, not too complex and you can't have too many questions. Like what are some things that you've seen work really well?
Yeah, some other things that we've seen work well is like for a brand like Autobrush or a skincare brand, anything along those lines, including informative pieces throughout the quiz is really helpful. So in the new quiz for Autobrush, one of the questions we ask is like, what are your biggest struggles with your little one brushing their teeth? Is it just flossing or just brushing? Is it brushing and flossing? So after that, we can include a piece where it's like just giving tips on like how to use the product, why the product is beneficial. That works really well. Also just making the results page really personalized works really well. So for the Autobrush one, we're kind of giving information at the top of the results page. Like we have suggested these products for you because this, and this is why it's going to be good for you. But other than that, it really is keeping the quiz simple, keeping it engaging with like icons or imagery. We use a lot of GIFs as well, and that works really well. Awesome.
And then I'm wondering how many people in the audience are triggered by GIFs or GIFs. And I've definitely seen some wild debates there. Awesome. Well, I want to come back to some of the stuff on Octane in a little bit, but Chris, again, thinking about scaling yourself, scaling your team, being as efficient as possible. What were you guys doing from a fulfillment perspective before, and what was that, I don't know, painful point where you were like, all right, we have to outsource this as soon as possible?
So we never did it ourselves, but we've had a few scenarios. We've had two scenarios prior to ShipBob. I knew from the get this was like I never wanted to scale a fulfillment operation at all. It's complex. It involves a lot of people, and I know nothing about it. So from the get, we were in the 3PLs right away. We had a facility in Vegas to start. We started to grow and we grew way too fast for that facility. We moved on from them. We moved to a bi-coastal situation with the headquarters in New Jersey. The owner there, phenomenal person. He really helped us shape up our stuff. And like we were not perfect with our barcoding, our skewing, our Go SKUs, and a bunch of the other hiccups that come along with like figuring it out for the first time. But they were fantastic with helping us kind of get our stuff together, and that was an incredible experience. But the big idea of like growing, we want to grow a lot really fast, and having two warehouses, we knew in the communication side by side wasn't really on top of, like, wasn't that great. Everything else was pretty fine. Like it got the job done. There weren't very many complaints. It was mainly about like where we wanted to be next year, or where we wanted to be in Q3, and like Q4, we're going for the moon for sure. And what is it going to look like when we're doing, 20x the orders we're doing now, 40x, 50x, and that was the tipping point, really. There weren't any things that like set us off at that point. It was just like we knew where we wanted to go, and ShipBob has the whole infrastructure for us to grow inside of. And, international, I looked into doing it by ourselves, and like, piecemealing this whole logistics thing together, it takes time. I don't know it well. I'll say it again. And it was just going to take up a ton of bandwidth on our team, and none of us want to do it. So it's like, why don't we switch to like the giant partner in this space and just rely on their expertise? And that's exactly what we've been doing. And like those international warehouses, like we're setting up all of our tax stuff now because we're going for it for sure. And it was mainly like the opportunity that shifted us versus bad experience that shifted us. And we're not fully, realizing that opportunity right now, but we're setting up for a massive kind of scaling.
That's awesome. I love also the because I know you guys are doing rather well today, and just the aggressive numbers where, all right, how can we 40 or 50x this in Q4 when buying behavior changes dramatically? So that's exciting.
It is.
When you think through growing, at such a massive clip, do you see a vast majority of that again staying in the US, or is it getting things buttoned up from a logistics perspective internationally, and you can turn those dials because you have experience from a marketing perspective there? Like, what's that look like?
Well, it will be in the US for sure. We know that. And along with product advancements, we know that we still have a lot of work to do here with our customer base. But we also know that like once we get it all figured out here, it's just a process of translating that success into these other markets and being able to speak to those markets like, hey, we're in this, like they're skeptical all the time. Like, oh, I'm going to hit with customs fees. Like we see it in the customer replies all the time. Like, well, don't order to Canada because it's going to be this. And it's like, okay, we fixed that, but it's just a better experience being in that place. So it's like we turn those dials down, but we know like CPAs are good there. Our cost per clicks, our marketing is good there when we're doing it. It just, we would have to sacrifice some of the experience, and we just didn't really want to do that yet. So we have a lot of work to do here in the United States and a ton more scaling to do. But once we're ready, I think really it will be a late this year or early next year thing for us, and we'll start slow. But now that Shopify really is supporting multiple currencies inside the platform, I don't have to create another store for all these other currencies. It's becoming more and more of a reality that there's not as many barriers to sell things and speak directly to the customers in those countries the way we would want to.
That's exciting. And yeah, I look forward to us partnering with you there again with these facilities. We'll keep opening up more in Canada and other English speaking countries and non-English speaking countries as well. And the multi-currency, multi-language, I helped run a company called Watchmaster for a bit. We were based in Berlin, and we'd sell primarily across Europe. And that was a great experience for me because one, we were growing like crazy, but just how disparate all the countries are. And like, the people in the UK and Ireland, they buy very similarly to the US, whereas like in Germany and France, it's very different. And our AOV, because it was luxury watches, was like 6,000 euro. And so it's just, that opened a whole nother pain point. And just, again, the translations, and I see why people also target, the Nordics, because we're like, all right, well, we'll just launch it in English and we think we'll be fine. Yeah. And so it's just, going global is a whole nother can of worms. Something you mentioned earlier about, the second fulfillment partner that you had, and how, maybe they couldn't help with some of the scale stuff, but they knew fulfillment really well and helped you guys button up a lot of your fulfillment processes. I think that's really important there. I'd love to dive into some of that stuff, where something we think about a lot at ShipBob is how do we set up our merchants so that when we receive so that they know what information they need to provide so that we can receive it as accurately and as quickly as possible. Because if you just send us a box or a pallet or pallets of a bunch of random stuff because it's easy, like nobody wins in that scenario. Whereas like you mentioned, barcoding to just having things much more organized. So, what were some of the biggest learnings there?
Oh man, I feel like I've been through them all. We were totally the people that sent boxes just to the fulfillment centers. Like they're ours, right? Like it has our name on it. And we learned the hard way a bunch of times. But they really helped us get into kind of organizing on the China side, really like getting, we would print these kind of like barcodings of the pallets and the cartons. and then structure them in a way that like they would just scan them, receive them in, and it was flawless. But before we were actually really, I swear, we were sending just boxes, like it, order things, send things, you receive things, and that was not working for them at all. And I felt bad about it, but they really they were patient with us. They helped us understand how important it is, and that was incredible. So barcoding was another thing, and uh, a lot of times these 3PLs, they'll have like a order accuracy guarantee, and like they had to take us off the order accuracy guarantee because we didn't have full barcoding set up, and it had to be by eye, and like certain people had to like be trained on like this looks like this, and it was sloppy for sure. But they gracefully like taught us how to do it, how to and kept us accountable for it too, which was really, really important. And now we're totally in a better place because of them, and there's without a doubt. But those were the two main things, like barcoding and like just scanning versus eyes. Like it's way faster to do it with the scanner, and it's foolproof. Versus the eyes, it's like it's subjective to the person. You don't really. There was order accuracy issues, and like that costs us tons of money all the time. And we're in the scaling business, but we're also in the decreasing cost business too. And that was it was an expensive time for us, but fortunately we're out of the weeds.
That's good, and thank you to them. But it's interesting too, is that work higher up in the funnel, before you're even thinking about an ad, and how important that is, because you have such a laser focus on CPCs and also with building a brand here, the customer experience, and the last thing you want are returns or just people speaking ill of just the entire customer journey. So, we talked about Octane and some of the value you're getting there. We talked about ShipBob and how that's helped scale you. You mentioned Klaviyo, which you use for email. Shopify is where you're running your store. What any other technology that stands out to you that's really helped you all scale, either from a growth perspective or just having the team be more efficient?
Attentive is, they're insane. They're so good. And they just went through a recent acquisition of another technology this morning, actually. They went through they acquired Tone, and we use Tone for conversations in SMS versus transactional.
You've already been using Tone.
Yeah, we were using Tone for a long time. Great group of people. And man, we were always so like, why don't you guys just do one of these, just combined. You guys want to be in the same space. And this morning when I woke up and I saw the email and a couple notes from the guys that are over there, I'm like, oh, this is great, because it simplifies it. Now it's like all in. The consolidation is good for us, right? Like we don't have to manage all these platforms. But another one is TapCart. I feel like people don't talk a lot about like the apps, and I was totally not a believer in the beginning. I really wasn't, but it is a crazy successful retention platform. We're getting better at using education inside that and getting more downloads and stuff like that. But
real quick before you keep it on there, so maybe explain what TapCart is. And then keep going.
So TapCart will literally transform your Shopify store into an app, and it's all just based on technology. You don't do anything. And then inside that app, you could customize not landing pages, but product pages. We do a lot in education there because we know it's 98% of people that have already bought from us are downloading the app. So we put the quiz in there to see if they want anything else. We have brushing timers in there. It's mainly based around this is a good place to manage your subscriptions, to buy the things that some accessories that you might need. It's a VIP thing too. It's these people they're already committed to the brand, and we talk a lot in there that isn't sales, and it helps us get more connected to the customers. But it's pretty much in a nutshell, they make it insanely easy to have an app for your store. And I do not come from a technical background. We don't have app builders on our team. They do it all, and for a reasonable price. And it is backed out. It's paid for years and years of its own service, pretty fast. And their team is also super talented. They hold their hands on a lot of things too, which is nice. But they make it easy, and they're opening up their SDK pretty soon. So we're thinking about building games and more engagement stuff in there. But it's really just a great place for us to talk to the customers and engage with them.
That's awesome. So to recap some of that, Attentive, which is an SMS platform, as Chris mentioned, they just acquired Tone, which was a more sales focused, like service provider meets tech in the SMS space. And then last week they acquired Privy, which is a more SMB version of I guess I'd say maybe Klaviyo. And so just a lot of exciting stuff happening all over. And then TapCart, which you use to turn your store and the experience into an app. And I believe you mentioned earlier you're able to utilize Octane within TapCart as well.
Not yet.
Okay.
Wink, wink. We'll take it though. But I'd imagine there will be a transition period between these two technologies operating like that for sure. But we host, we'll host the quiz on our site, and then it gets hosted in the app. So honestly, it feels like it's already part of the app because it's connected. And a ton of people that's how people are going through that quiz funnel again to identify some other things that they might need that we offer, because we do have quite a bit of offerings. So
nice. That's great to know. And I mean, I know TapCart's done a good job of, really adding a lot of customers. But we haven't had anybody in operators talk about them specifically. So thanks for diving in there. I mean, that's a lot of different, technologies you're using to scale. Anything else that stands out to you?
Man, that's really it. From that's the conversational side of them. We've explored a lot of the automated AI technologies for Facebook marketing and stuff like that. We haven't really totally hit the nail on the head. We're about to try another one, so I'm like, I don't have much to say about them yet. Smartly, they look insane. I think it will help us make decisions faster. So we're after a lot of technology that can help us make more informed decisions faster, and to kind of micro analyze that data and just feed us, do this pretty much, right? So nothing else that really sticks out as a game changer right now.
Well, then let's get into the fun stuff everybody loves to talk about again, supply chain. So you mentioned you manufacture in China. You have a long history of working with different manufacturers in China and across Asia and the US and elsewhere. What's it been like over the last 6 or 18 months just with supply chain there, getting stuff over from China, as you guys look to scale a ton towards the end of the year? How are you thinking of inventory from a cash flow perspective? I know I just asked a ton of questions, but I guess maybe start through how you're attacking the supply chain issue and what you've seen.
Yeah, so starting with the inventory and planning and cash flow, that was probably one of the biggest mistakes or mishaps that I've ever kind of mismanaged. I didn't actually understand how much cash and lead times it would take to keep it rolling at all times without going out of stock. So we take it super seriously now. And even last year, we thought we had it all. We messed up the year before that big time, got stuck at the ports. Everybody's importing at the same time, got stuck at the ports, had to do some massive brand control at that point. We made it out. This year, last year, we're like, oh, do not make the same mistakes again. Even in a pandemic, we still have control over the situation. Ordered earlier. The ports were just insane. It was just by this much that we made it into all the warehouses and checked in for Black Friday. And then this year, and we're thinking about placing that order within the next 2 months to make sure it could sit there at this point and just make sure that port congestion doesn't jam us up. And that was the biggest blocker of Corona for us, port congestion. It would sit there on the boat for a month longer than we ever anticipated. And it's something that we just dealt with. We ran out of stock a few times, and that sucks for momentum. It really does. And in today's world marketing, momentum's a lot to do with it. you have to reteach the pixel, you have to go through the learning phase, all these things, you have to dial everything back and then turn everything back on, right? Like, it's not as easy as a light switch. And those are the biggest disruptions. Outside of that, it wasn't that bad. It sucked for sure, but if the ports weren't as jammed up, we probably would have been in a decent place for some of the lower months that we experienced. And this time around,
that's a key element if the ports weren't backed up. But
yep. And the ports are backed up now, right? Like, we have stuff stuck in the ports right this second, and it's like, when you think you've planned for Armageddon and then this Armageddon 2 comes, it's like, some things I don't know if we'll ever be able to plan for, but we're really going to order like our Black Friday stuff pretty soon, and it could just sit there. I'd rather be here and have a little bit of peace of mind.
Yeah, definitely. And are you guys shipping into like LA and Long Beach, or where are you guys shipping into?
So we're shipping into LA and in New Jersey.
Okay.
So we do both, and we separate. We try to do it by sea because it's more sustainable. It doesn't always happen like that, especially with these ports are starting to throw a little bit too many wrenches in the system. But we go into those 2 ports every single time.
Are you seeing a variance in like receiving time and port congestion on each?
Oh, it's brutal. Not on sea, or not on air. Air's been great, actually. It's just still expensive now. It's way more expensive.
Between LA and New Jersey.
The port times, LA is way worse than New Jersey, like way, way, way worse. But air, it's been fine on either end. I actually don't even know where the air lands. We send them to both locations. We always split it in China and then send to both locations. But I know sea, we hit those 2 ports every single time because our middleman and our forwarder, I have a good relationship. He's here in San Diego, so he's always on like, hey man, I'm trying to get these out the ports, and I'm like, hey dude, these have been sitting here for 20 plus days. It's like we're running low on inventory and stuff like that. But we've learned a lot along this way, and it was one of our biggest mistakes or downfalls, and we take it wildly seriously now.
I appreciate that info. It is just crazy to see. Like, I'm a little bit north of you in Orange County, and I grew up here, and I've never seen container ships in the ocean ever. And for the past probably 5 or 6 months, it's almost like the 405 freeway. It's just these container ships backed up in the middle of the ocean. I've never seen that before. It's wild.
All of our Autobrushes.
Yes, exactly. I'll just swim out there. Awesome. So I really appreciate both of you taking the time. Yeah. We'll close this up with the question I asked everybody. Aoife, we'll start with you, and then Chris, you can bring us home. So, Aoife, what is your number 1 tip for e-commerce store owners or entrepreneurs today?
I have to say, build a quiz. Help your customers find the products that they need, especially if you have a lot of SKUs, I should say even. It's just such a good tool for really helping customers find the products that they need. So I'm going to say build a quiz.
There you go. Wearing the Octane AI hat. I like it. Yeah. Check them out. I'm going to be following up with you after this as well. So, Chris, what about you? What's your number 1 tip?
I would say just listen. The customers hold all the keys to your growth. We've been really good at that. It helps us iterate on the product. It helps us iterate on all the things we're about to do the second half of this year. But it all just comes down to listening. They hold the keys of the kingdom, and we listen to them.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely got to listen a lot today. I learned a ton. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate both of you taking the time, and everybody who logged in, and people who will watch this in the future. So we'll end it there. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next week.
You got it. Thank you, Casey.